What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. I apologize for the delay. I'm in Vegas. Nick is in Vegas. And I went to go get some barbecue. Shout out Hondo Carpenter. And after eating a burger that was 2 burgers made out of 4 different meats, slapped on top of each other with brisket on top of that, fried pickles in the middle, and some coleslaw that I did not finish, as you would guess. On my way back, we missed the exit because, you can only have so much food comatose before you start driving like a maniac. And we're here. So I'm happy I made it. Vegas has been a good time. How you feel, my friend? For those of you who don't know, we're both in Vegas for different reasons, and we have yet to see each other while we're out here. I'm literally staring at your hotel. It's right behind me, actually, right there.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I was kind of upset whenever you said that you were running late because you missed an exit. I thought maybe you were at a heater at a blackjack table and I could ask for a raise here in a week or two. It'll be like, yeah, you know what? Since you have some good fortune, maybe bump up the old paycheck here. But you know what? I'm glad to hear you had a good lunch anyway, and I'll just have to wait a little bit longer before asking for that.
I have not gambled yet, actually, in Vegas. Have you gambled?
Yeah. And I have not won, but I've gambled.
I knew you didn't. The way that you said, yeah. I knew that was not a victory. I will say I will be there tonight, and we'll see what happens. You might get a text at like 1 a.m. It's just like $20 coming your way, pal. Yeah, that's what I walked away with. Who knows? Could be a good time. All right, let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football. Plenty going on. The Baltimore Ravens, Arthur Smith, all on the docket. A very fun mock draft that I think people would have a good time with. A very, very good time with if it did happen. And it's Tuesday. So we're diving into Overreaction Tuesday here. Week 1 of the new season. Wild card round of the postseason. I'll toss it over to you to start things off with. I know we got a couple of news and notes. What do we got?
Yeah, let's kick things off with a little bit of trash talk. What am I saying? Heat talk. Heat talk. That's great. Trash talk between the Baltimore Ravens and wide receiver of the Steelers, George Pickens. In a video circulating around X, Ravens players were asked to kind of smell Lamar Jackson's new cologne perfume mix and tell everybody what it smells like. Well, in the background, somebody said it smells like George Pickens. Soft? Yeah. It smells just like that. So the trash talk has picked up.
Look, I got no issues with that. I think it's hilarious. It's wild that George has such a target on his back right now, but I think he's put that target on his back. I hope he and the Pittsburgh Steelers can obviously back it up, add to that trash talk, and have a good time as well. I just think, I think it's funny. I also think that the best part about that video, because I watched it as I was coming here yesterday, the best part about that video is that you have to listen like 40 times to hear him say it in the background, and somehow the internet found it. Like immediately the internet found it. I got it off of like Dov or somebody. I saw Dov tweet it out and I was like, oh, look at this. And I watched his video and I was like, they don't say anything. So then I watched the whole 3-minute video and I was like, nope, it doesn't happen there either. And then I started Googling it. It's all over Google. So I'm going, all right, it's got to be here. It's got to be in this video. It is the faintest. Oh, it smells like George Pickens. Soft. Yeah, it smells like George Pickens. Ever. I think that's the best part about it is how amazing we all are, how crazy NFL fans are to be able to pick that out of that video. Trash talk starts early. I think it helps the Pittsburgh Steelers just a little bit if you're gonna do it, but they are targeting the right guy because there's one name that you could try to get into their head in Pittsburgh right now, and it is George Pickens. So we'll see what happens. I love it, to be honest. I hope the Steelers can back it up on their end and then toss a little bit of fire back.
Yeah, it just goes to show that you got to be careful when there's a camera around because it will pick you up and the internet will find it, even if it is a whisper, even if it's in the background. And like you said, it took me about 4 or 5 times. I had to put in headphones. I'm like, what are we talking about here? But it's there. And there were people that found it. So you got to love the internet for that one. Let's move over to another piece of news and notes. Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith in the coaching cycle right now, getting interviews from both the New York Jets and the Chicago Bears. At least they have requested to interview Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. So a little bit of interest mustering up for the first-year OC in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I have a couple of trains of thought here. So to start off with it, I don't think the Jets are a real team for a guy like Arthur Smith right now. Chicago might be, because you have the quarterback and you're still picking pretty high. I think they're developing pieces. You have a good defense. You could do something there. But I don't think the Jets are the right move. I look at Arthur Smith as a guy that likes Pittsburgh, has been very open about liking the Steelers and his role here. And because of that, he isn't going to leave for anything. You know, he said it himself that a couple of years ago, no matter who called, chances were he was going to go take that job. Today, where he stands, it's not really the same thing. He doesn't have the same thought. And that's how the Jets are a dumpster fire. They're a bad organization, run very poorly. Arthur Smith probably doesn't want anything to do with that. I think Chicago's a real contender for him. I both surprised and not surprised that he's getting some looks here. I look at it and say Brian Flores makes a ton of sense to be on this coaching cycle, but he had to take a year of being 2 years technically, but 1 year of being a really good defensive coordinator before he started getting coaching interviews again. Arthur Smith is a very medium offensive coordinator right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. There are certainly concerns, and the Steelers offense isn't very good. So to get head coaching gigs right now is strange, I would say. I just feel like he's not really a serious top end candidate for any team. And because of that, I don't think where we stand currently, unless something changes in there. I mean, Antonio Pierce got fired as I was driving here, and I was very nervous because I thought the whole city of Las Vegas would shut down immediately. There will be coaching options, you know, and if everybody gets filled and Arthur Smith's left there as like a top, okay, this is round 2, we might as well see what we have. I could see it happening, but I'm not where we stand right now. If I had to guess, if somebody said pick where you believe Arthur Smith is next season, I'd tell you he's in Pittsburgh, and he's still the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And unless something changes, I don't think my mindset is going to change in that train of thought.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, especially if you look at some of the options right now on the coaching carousel. I mean, Ben Johnson is going to be a name that is heavily circulated, although he did turn down head coaching gigs last year. Maybe there's just not the right fit for him this year. And then you look at the New York Jets. They finished an interview with Rex Ryan today, so I have no idea what the New York Jets are doing.
They're interviewing everybody. They could care less.
Yeah, it feels like a very strange coaching carousel this year. And yeah, he's going to throw his hat in the ring, but I see him as a team's maybe second or third option right now. I think he needs a little bit more momentum before potentially getting that second kick at the can of being a head coach.
Yeah, it's too early for a guy like Arthur Smith. I could see next season. And again, like, I think it's too early for Arthur Smith on the Arthur Smith side of things. I was watching an episode of Friends last night, and it's the episode where Rachel's all over the dude who's buying suits from her or something. And he's like, I just got a divorce. Like, if you're turning down Jennifer Aniston, my friend, okay, it just shows that, you know, sometimes you need some time. And Arthur Smith, I think right now is enjoying his little life in Pittsburgh, and he's only going to leave for the perfect opportunity. I don't think he's going to get that perfect opportunity this offseason. All right, let's talk some running backs here. Let's have some fun as we move into the second part of this podcast on a Tuesday. Does it feel like a Wednesday to you? Is it a Wednesday in your head?
I'm not going to lie to you. I don't even know what day it is. We're in Vegas. That typically tends to happen when you go to Vegas. I thought it was Sunday yesterday, but it wasn't. So it was Monday. So I'm a day off too.
Yeah, I've been saying all day it's Wednesday. It's a weird time, but it's Tuesday. It's Overreaction Tuesday. Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers running backs here. So the name that everybody, and I mean everybody, has been tossing out as the Pittsburgh Steelers #1 draft pick has been Ashton Jeanty. From week 3 of the college football season, we, for a couple of weeks here, ran a running tally of what Ashton Jeanty was doing on Saturdays because people were so gung-ho about the Pittsburgh Steelers landing a guy like Ashton Jeanty in the NFL draft. And where we stood, 24-48 76 hours ago were it's not going to happen. He's going to the Dallas Cowboys. He's going to 12. No questions asked. He's not going to make it to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This morning, Bleacher Report says maybe not, my friend. They have Ashton Jeanty going to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 22nd overall, falling past Dallas and everybody else. He's still the first running back off the board. And their explanation is pretty simple, that there are a lot of positions in this draft that you can draft ahead of a running back because of how deep the running back class is. You don't have to really push it and say, you got to go draft a running back right now because they won't be available next round. No, there'll be a ton of them available next round and the round after that. And because of that, guys like Ashton Jeanty fall to 22nd, where the Pittsburgh Steelers get them. And I will be very honest. I don't know how sold I am, as that is a real possibility for Pittsburgh, but I am totally sold on the, if he's there, you get Ashton Jeanty. You don't think about it. You don't draft somebody else. This is not a Najee Harris 2.0. This is 2,600 yards in one season. One season. And I believe 29, if I'm not mistaken, 29 touchdowns. Yep. 2,600 yards, 26 and 100 yards and 29 touchdowns this past season alone. Should have won the Heisman. And at least there's a strong argument for him to win the Heisman. And to fall to 22nd, there wouldn't be a guy there that has the upside and the immediate impact at the same time as Ashton Jeanty. I'll steer off of that just because you got to be realistic in your conversations here and say that what I have been told is not Ashton Jeanty. It's just unfortunately not. I've been told that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to focus heavily on both sides of the line because they're not 100% sold that their offensive line is built the way that they would like it to be built. Certainly the defensive side of the line, they are going to focus on very heavily and very early, and the quarterback position. They are not yet sold at what's going on at quarterback. And I was told this last night, yesterday, at multiple points, that this is the train of thought for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. I don't know if Ashton Jeanty fits that, but I will say that it doesn't matter who else is there. You draft Ashton Jeanty if he's at 22, right?
Yeah, I would 100% have to imagine, even if they're keying in on the offensive and defensive lines, what are you going to do? Draft another offensive tackle for the third year in a row? Like, what are you going to do there? Are you going to draft another center, even though you took one in the second round last year? And we all know center shouldn't be taken in the first round. Defensive line makes a little bit more sense, but this isn't, like you mentioned, this isn't Najee Harris. Najee Harris was a good prospect that could give you some immediate upgrades at the running back position. Ashton Jeanty has the possibility to become a Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, top of the league runner for several years. Najee's been great. Najee's been consistent at just above 1,000. You draft Ashton Jeanty and your offensive line gets a chance to figure it out. I think that is a game changer for a Pittsburgh Steelers team that is trying to live and die on the ground game. So if you get that opportunity, I don't think you can turn it down, especially considering, yes, you could need some help. Yes, you need to plan for the future at defensive line, but pushing it off 1 year to be able to go out there and get a game changer on offense is something that a lot of people in Pittsburgh are going to be clamoring for, especially if he falls all the way down to 22.
All right, so I have two hypotheticals. I'll ask you one individually. First one, would you draft Ashton Jeanty over Jalen Milroe if they were both there at 22?
Without a shadow of a doubt, yes.
Okay. Second one, I think I would do the same thing. I think that would be more difficult than the second one I'm going to ask you, simply because it's a quarterback and you need it's the most important position on the field, and the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have one. And it's just about time to say, okay, it's time to replace Ben Roethlisberger. It's not time to replace Ben Roethlisberger with Russell Wilson. It's not time to replace Ben Roethlisberger with Kenny Pickett in a draft class that you knew wasn't going to work out. It's time to replace Ben Roethlisberger. And I think Jalen Milroe's got Lamar Jackson-ish upside. You're not going to be a 3-time MVP. At least you can't project that. But I think he's got the skill set to be a Lamar Jackson style player. And I don't think the Steelers would have the easiest time passing on that if they had the opportunity. The second hypothetical here, but I agree with you. I think I'd still go Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty over any position of need for the Pittsburgh Steelers at 22. If that position, I don't have names, but I'm just going to say that position is available almost like a Troy Fautanu was for the Steelers this past season.
Yeah, if somebody of that caliber that we're talking early in the draft process as a, hey, surefire top 10, maybe 10 to 15, if you're lucky, he might fall to that. But if he's there at 20 or at 20 to 22, which is right now kind of where the Steelers are projected to land, I would have a much harder time. For Milroe, no, I don't quite see it. I understand where you're getting it from. I understand that some people are projecting that he could grow into that, but I'm not willing to take that risk. The one reason I would think about it, if it is a position of need and it is that caliber of player, is because while Jeanty would be great, you do need more than one piece to fix this team right now. And there is a lot of running back options that I could feel confident pairing with Jaylen Warren next year and saying that is going to be a pretty good run game. That is going to be a pretty good fill in or makeup spot for Najee Harris. We're talking about, I believe its name's Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. Very good. Yeah. We've talked about Cam Skadaboo. I'm not quite on that train, but there are people that are on that train.
You could go Tre'Davion Henderson.
You could go Travion Henderson. You could go, Quinshawn Judkins. You could go the guy out of Oregon. The running back out of Oregon is another guy that I think could be a good value pick in maybe the 3rd or 4th round. So if it ends up being, and again, I haven't dove deeply into NFL draft prospects as of yet, especially on the defensive line. But if it's going to be that type of player that we're talking, hey, he's a top 10 athlete, and for some reason he falls to 22, I think I have a harder time weighing that. It's just a matter of kind of the situation and the player at that point.
I agree. And it comes down to very simply, Ashton Jeanty is a franchise running back if he works out. He's a franchise, no questions asked running back if it works. Franchise running backs last much shorter than franchise guards, franchise defensive tackles, franchise corners, franchise quarterbacks. These guys last so long, and running backs, sometimes they last a while, sometimes they don't. It's real hit or miss, and I think that you're taking a massive shot. You're taking a risk to sit here and say Ashton Jeanty is the clear, easy selection in that group, because you might not get all you're bargaining for with a guy like Ashton Jeanty 7 years from now, compared to, you could get a guard or a defensive tackle that's just starting to hit their stride in that 7-year mark. And I think that's why you have to look at it in that context. And I agree with you.
Look at Cam Hayward. Look at what he's doing this year. He's 36 years old. Meanwhile, I'm trying to think of who else was in his class when it comes to running backs. But look at a guy like Todd Gurley. He was at the top of the game, at the top of the league, and he's been out of the league now for about half a decade.
Exactly. Happens all the time. Ezekiel Elliott is a prime example of he's 29 years old. TJ's 30. You got TJ at, what'd you get him at? Pick 30? Pick 20, 28, something?
It was 29 or 30. I can't remember.
Yeah, it was right on that number there. And that's what you're getting. That's what you get at 30. That's what you're looking for in the first round, is the guy that's going to be there at 30 and still be potentially the defensive player of the year. That's where they're going with that. I agree with you. I think that just longevity wise, it would make things different. But depending on who's there, Ashton Jeanty is a fun name to have. For the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right. With that said, that's everything on my agenda here. Some news and notes. Ashton Jeanty. You know what time it is. It's Overreaction Tuesday. Wild card round, Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens for a 3rd time this season. A game that it's totally split. You got Ben Roethlisberger picking the Ravens. You got Rich Eisen saying the Steelers are going to pull this one out. It goes all over the place. It is so hard to pick a line and say this is where people are favored in this one. Meanwhile, I believe the Raiders are 8.5-point favorites at M&T Bank Stadium, a game that is supposed to be snowy. The wife, for the first time all season, Jillian, finally, because I say it all the time. I'm constantly like, yo, come to Cleveland with me. Come to this. Like, I love these cities. They're so much fun. I know people hate the Browns, but the city of Cleveland might be my favorite place. Like, I don't know why. I think it's the Little Italy in it. I couldn't tell you. It's definitely has something to do with the old lady that hands me my cannolis, but these cities are sick. Jillian finally is like, I think I want to start coming to games, like start coming and traveling with you all over the place. And I'm like, that would be so awesome. Let's do it. Let's go to Baltimore. 6 to 8 inches of snow coming down at M&T Bank Stadium on Saturday night. So it'll be, it might be Baltimore. It might be a Motel 8 on the side of the road next to a Pizza Hut. We'll see what happens. Either way, I'm excited. Let's dive into it. Week not power rankings. Wild card weekend, Pittsburgh Steelers, Cincinnati Bengals, Overreaction Tuesday.
It's a fine line between, drinking wine and squashing grapes, as we say in this business. And sometimes it's very subtle.
All right, let's dive into it. What do you got for me?
Yeah, I got a couple here, and let's kick things off with that offensive line since we were just talking a little bit about the draft. One player that the Steelers drafted last year is Troy Fautanu. I'll say this. Troy Fautanu's injury is the biggest issue with the Steelers' offensive line right now.
Oh, I'll push back on that. Okay. I think it's close. I do think it's close. Dan Moore has regressed. Broderick Jones has actually taken some steps forward. I don't know if you saw the stat, but it's a complete split. They've both given up 10 sacks this season. Dan Moore's have come in the back half of the season. Broderick's all came in the front half. So it's not a good place to be if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'll push back a little bit and say this. I think it's an overreaction because I think James Daniels is the biggest blow the Steelers offensive line has had all year. Because you could work with Broderick Jones and Dan Moore. You could. You can't work with Mason McCormick and Spencer Anderson at the same level as you would work with Dan Moore and Broderick Jones. I think James Daniels that's a guy that's going to make $20 million this offseason, a season. You would have liked to have him on that offensive line this season, and he was playing good when he left. So I would say overreaction. Walks the line. There's an argument for it, but James Daniels, I would say, is the biggest blow the Steelers offensive line has had all year.
Yeah, my thought process is just simply, what were we talking about after week 2 when it came to Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu? Troy's finally stepping in. He looked like he was going to be a bona fide starter from day one. You could sit Broderick, let him get his feet underneath him, and then put him back at his natural side and watch him continue to kind of grow. He's grown throughout the season, as you would hope a second-year guy to do. Now, he started from a much lower point than you wanted him to because he started in a bit of a sophomore slump, but he's gotten better as the year has gone on. Meanwhile, Dan Moore has regressed. If you would have had Fautanu at your disposal, you could have flip-flopped him, and you could have had Fautanu at right, and he could have had a much better Broderick Jones at left tackle. If you protect those edges, I think it helps Russell Wilson a lot, because what you're looking at the last couple of weeks is Russ running out of time and having nowhere to run to, because he tries to get to the outside. He doesn't have the speed to get around, and everybody gets upfield on these Steelers offensive tackles. It would open some things up for the offense, but again, it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. James Daniels is a massive loss as well.
Yes, I agree. And shout out Trey Hendrickson, who showed just how weak that edge is for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now.
I got another one for you. If George Pickens doesn't perform well on Saturday, his time in Pittsburgh is over.
Oh, okay. So we're saying doesn't perform well, Steelers lose. It's the offseason. We're out.
Yes.
That is not an overreaction, my friend. That is not an overreaction. I told you, and I will not repeat it, but I'll give people some hints about what I was told after Saturday's game. And it was not in the light of George Pickens is a superstar. It was more in the light of $30 million might not be $30 million after a performance like that one. I don't think that's an overreaction at all. I think there's a fair shot, if he even performs well, that George Pickens plays his last game with the Pittsburgh Steelers on Saturday. But I think if he looks bad, if there are issues, if the Steelers can do something like sign T. Higgins early, I think it opens the door to say, all right, we're moving on, pal. We're going to do this from scratch. We're going to start over. They got rid of all the noise in their locker room last offseason. Remember that. The last remaining noise is George Pickens. And he's worth keeping around. He's worth the noise. I'm not going to argue against that. But I'm not sure that they're going to keep him. So that is not an overreaction. That is not an overreaction at all, actually.
All right, I got one more for you. Then we got plenty of listener overreactions this Tuesday. My last one is the Steelers are in a worse spot now than they were at this time last season.
That is also not an overreaction. The Steelers are in a bad spot right now. I don't think they'd beat the Houston Texans if they went to Houston. I think Baltimore is their best shot, actually, because it's the Baltimore Ravens, and you just never know what's going to happen. I think that's the only dying hope that the Steelers have left. They're in a bad spot. This is 2020, lose 4 in a row heading into the postseason, or lose 5 in a row heading into the postseason. That's what this is. This is a team that looked very dangerous and now doesn't. I will fight back on that. I'm going to say this. I'm going to lock it in and say not an overreaction. But I'll fight back with myself on this and say, if you moved one of these losses, one of them, if Cincinnati beats the Steelers in Cincy a couple of weeks ago, if the Steelers beat Baltimore but they lose to Baltimore the first time, totally different conversation we're having right now. The overreactions, the trouble, the worry, totally different than what we're talking about right now. So I would say that maybe we're a little blinded at the fact that it all came right in a row, but we did all expect this to come. And I think if you change some things, it looks much different. But I'm still going to stick with it, and I'm going to say that is not an overreaction.
All right, let's jump into a couple of listener overreactions from our community page earlier today. Noah Thomas says the Steelers' issues are less about Tomlin and Arthur Smith and more about having a Nordstrom's defense and an Old Navy offense in a league that requires a great offense more than a great defense.
Oh, my gosh. I'll tell you this, dude. I don't know if Old Navy was supposed to be a compliment, but it should be, because Old Navy is where it's at, my friend. It's where it's at, okay?
It was a diss, but yes.
Big Old Navy guy over here. I don't disagree with this. I think Tomlin and Arthur Smith are problems. Obviously, I think TA is a problem, obviously. But I think at the end of the day, nobody's playing well in Pittsburgh. And that is where the problems lie. You could have a bad offensive coordinator and play really well. You could have I think Arthur Smith's a decent offensive coordinator and play really well and look phenomenal. But the Steelers aren't doing any of it. They don't look good. The players don't look good at all. I don't think this is an overreaction. I put more blame on the Steelers, on the players themselves, than I do on the coaching staff at this point in time for Pittsburgh.
All right, let's go over to Eddie the Great, who says frustration within this fan base has reached a boiling point. No more mediocre, non-losing record seasons. Rooney surprises us and makes a drastic change this offseason.
That's an overreaction. We know it's an overreaction. I literally was just having lunch 2 hours ago, and somebody at the table asked me, they said, does the fan base like Tomlin? And I said, I would guess 65% of them at this point don't want him there. And he said, do you think they ever would? And I said, never in my life will they get rid of Mike Tomlin. It won't happen. It just isn't going to happen. Rooney's not going to make it happen. Rooney believes in Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin signed a 3-year deal while losing 7 playoff games in a row just to shut everybody up and say it doesn't need that. It's not going to happen. No, the This is an overreaction. I get it. It might disappoint some people, but it's an overreaction.
All right, let's go to Tyler7936, who says Justin Fields should start in the playoffs to see if he gives this team a spark. Most of the other playoff teams have younger, more mobile quarterbacks and seem to be more successful.
This is not an overreaction. Justin Fields should be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. He should be. There's no reason for him not to be. They stink. Their offense stinks. They're not scoring points. Russ is doing nothing to make any of this better. I mean, it makes total sense. Yes, Justin should be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the postseason. Maybe he sucks. How do you suck worse than what's going on right now? That's the question. I just don't think it's possible. I would say this is not an overreaction. Justin Fields should be the starting quarterback of the Steelers. Like, I get the Russ thing. I get it. I'm not saying Russ is a bad quarterback. What I'm saying is exactly what the overreaction states. Maybe he adds a spark. Maybe. And if he does, that's all you're looking for, because right now there is no spark in Pittsburgh.
Let's jump over to Josh in the comment section here that says, overreaction, TJ Watt's career is wasting away and he's not going to finish his career in Pittsburgh, unfortunately.
No, he is going to finish his career in Pittsburgh. That's an overreaction. TJ doesn't want to go anywhere. He owns a house here. His wife's here. Not that they can't leave, but TJ's built a good life in the city of Pittsburgh. He loves Mike Tomlin. He's made it known so many times that he doesn't want to play for anybody but Mike Tomlin. And a lot of people say that. I get it. TJ's a guy I trust. When words come out of his mouth that are that strong, you listen to them, because it doesn't happen often. I would say this is an overreaction. Maybe the wasting away part you can make an argument for, about how he needs to win some playoff games and stuff like that. But I don't think that he's ever going to leave Pittsburgh.
Let's go over to the Honest Truth, who says, overreaction, the Mike Williams trade was useless. I was so excited when it happened, but I've been greatly disappointed with them not using him at all, especially since the offense is praying for help at wide receiver.
I think it is useless. I would say this is not an overreaction. I mean, it maybe what is useless for a 6th round pick, who knows? But this is useless. He is useless, and this is not an overreaction. The disappointment should be there. It is there. It's across the board there. I mean, maybe Mike Williams isn't good anymore, but it's not like the guys in front of him are. So let's not act like I hate that excuse. I heard so many people say it. Mike Williams isn't a number 2 anymore. Okay, great. Neither is Van Jefferson, pal. Neither is Ben Skoranek, dude. So there's an argument to be made here of who cares what Mike Williams is, and maybe we should focus on the guys that are in front of him a little bit more, and what they aren't either. And I agree with you. I don't think this is an overreaction at all.
Let's go over to Killicam, who says, overreaction, Russ beats the Ravens and earns himself a contract, dooming the Steelers to 2 more years of barely making the playoffs.
This can't be an overreaction either.
Mm-mm.
It can't be. Russ is 1 playoff game away, 1 win away from signing a 3-year deal in Pittsburgh. That's what he is. He's 1 game away, 1 win away from locking up a contract long-term in Pittsburgh and being the Steelers quarterback, and then trying to figure it out for the next 3 years and probably not figuring it out and wondering what went wrong. Oh, probably the quarterback. So this is not an overreaction. I mean, Russ, like I keep saying, Russ is 1 win away from locking up a long-term deal in Pittsburgh.
Let's jump over to Chris. Appreciate you as always. Says the line is the Steelers' main problem. Go get Mike Munchak.
Yeah, if we're sticking on the overreaction thing here, this is this is not an overreaction. The line is a massive problem for the Steelers. I don't know. I like Pat Meyer. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think he's done a lot of good things in this league. But at the same time, it's hard to say Mike Munchak's not one of the greatest ever. So I would say it's not an overreaction. Go get Mike Munchak. Great. I also think that having a lot of injuries and some young guys who need to develop are also playing a role here.
Let's go over to the Honest Truth again, who has another overreaction saying letting Brian Flores not become the defensive coordinator was one of the biggest mistakes Tomlin has made in his entire career.
This is tough to say it's an overreaction just because Tomlin didn't let Flores leave. Flores wanted to leave. He didn't want to be the DC in Pittsburgh. He wanted to be the DC somewhere where he could control the defense, because you don't get to do that in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of like fire TA chants going on right now. People got to look at Tomlin and say, that's his defense, man. It's always been his defense. That's why Flores isn't here. That's why the defensive coordinators time after time after time again are people that a lot of people don't even know, because it's just the next guy to take the orders from Mike Tomlin. I would say Tomlin not giving up the defense to Flores could be one of his biggest mistakes, but I don't think that option was ever on the table. So I'm going to go overreaction on this one.
We got one here from Pittsburgh Hornets who says overreaction. Van Jefferson will get more targets than Mike Williams on Saturday.
That is not an overreaction. It's a disappointment, maybe. Yeah, very likely. Very likely would be the word. It's Van Jefferson is going to get way more snaps, way more reps, way more targets. Just like Mike Tomlin saying, we're open to Justin Fields. And then Justin Fields saying, yeah, I don't anticipate any change, to be honest. So that's where we are. Tomlin's just talking out his butt at this point, and we're listening. That is not an overreaction.
That's a wrap for Overreaction Tuesday then.
Awesome. Beautiful. Appreciate you guys. As always, those were fantastic. And nobody put me in a hole. So this is 2 weeks in a row. Feeling good. All right. We're going to dive into all your questions, answer everything before we head out of here, as we do every day. But first, we're going to take a quick break here from our boys over at DraftKings.
Hey, football fans, there's only a few short weeks left in the season, and we've got some exciting wildcard games to look forward to. Get in on the action right now with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. They're offering all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5. Don't let this slip away. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using our code ALLSteelers. The crown is yours. Stay in the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. Love the thrill of betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen, making watching the game that much more exciting. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code ALLSteelers and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code ALLSteelers only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. All right, with that said, we're going to finish off the show the same way we do every day. I know that I'm a little laggy today. I hope everybody's sticking with me. And answer all your questions. So make sure that you're tossing them in the chat. We'll get to all of them before we head out of here. Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. What do we got?
Yeah, let's kick things off with Peter, who wants to know what happens first. Logan Lee plays a snap or Roman Wilson catches a pass.
This is awesome. This is awesome. This is why I don't read comments. This is why I just let them rock and come through, and I embrace it all as it comes. What happens first is Roman Wilson catches a pass. Okay. Logan Lee's not going to play snap until, you know what? If I'm going to take that back, I might go Logan Lee. Logan Lee's got an opportunity to play next season, and Roman Wilson does too. And Logan Lee, chances are, is going to get on the field before Roman Wilson gets a target. So I would, it's crazy to say, but I would go Logan Lee in this one.
Let's jump to Marlon Lewis, who says, how bad does Russell Wilson and or the offense have to be to replace Justin in game on Saturday?
I think halftime you go in down over 17 points. If you go into the locker room, it's 21-0, 20-3, 21-3, whatever. And Russ looks bad. There's a possibility Justin gets the go. I would say anything less than that or any later than that, and it's a no-go. but I would say halftime's where it's going to happen, and it's got to be bad. Like, it's got to be really, really bad. I don't anticipate that happening, but that's the baseline I would put for it.
Let's jump over to Vibin with the Dogs, who says, couldn't Arthur Smith just ask Justin Fields about being in the Chicago Bears organization?
Yeah, he probably could. He probably could have. And I think Chicago is a better spot to be as a head coach than New York, obviously. But if I had to pick Chicago, head coach of Chicago, anything, I don't even want to be the janitor in New York or the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going with the offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, you know, you got to deal with the fan base that hates you, but whatever, you could get over that, and you could just stick around in a good organization that treats you well with players that really like you.
Let's go over to John Burnett, who says, please, please, please give me some hope for this game. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers go pass heavy to start out on Saturday?
I mean, I don't know. Is that what the hope is? Are you hoping that is the hope that they go pass heavy? Because
you're hoping they put the game in Russell Wilson's hands immediately?
Like, that's a tough place to be. Where are you throwing the football? George Pickens constantly in the cold and he drops it. I mean, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I will say that I expect the Steelers to be different in their game against Baltimore. They were a little bit different in Cincinnati or against Cincinnati. I expect them to be more different against Baltimore offensively. I still think this is a run-heavy game. A lot of Jaylen Warren, a lot of Najee Harris, and, you know, kind of I think Mike Tomlin's a little bit fed up with Russell Wilson at this point, and I could see him pulling back a little bit on the pass-heavy offense.
Let's go over to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, Tomlin's comments highlighting minimizing risk. Does this playoff matchup demand a more aggressive passing game early to put pressure on Baltimore, even at the expense of that risk?
No, you cannot turn the ball over against Baltimore. That is the biggest key to success against the Ravens. Do not turn the ball over. You have to take advantage of every single opportunity that you have. And that also means 3 and outs are essentially turnovers, because you're taking a chance that it's a good punt. You're taking a chance that they don't just continuously score on you. I would say 3 and outs are just as dangerous as turnovers, but turnovers are dangerous and you don't want them. So I think I'd push back on this and say it is not worth the risk. You want to play good quality football in a safe manner to make sure that you're moving the football, but you're not turning it over, because that's the end of the ball game. You turn the ball over multiple times against the Ravens, you've lost.
Yeah, let's not forget they were in the game against Philly until they turned the ball over. They were in the game against Baltimore until they turned the ball over. So turning the ball over has been key in a couple of these losses. So I think that they're always going to, especially with Tomlin, they're always going to prioritize ball security and minimal risk on offense. That's just the way he's been for 20 years. It's not going to change going into a playoff game.
Exactly.
Let's jump to the honest truth. Appreciate you checking in as always. Says, as much as I want the Steelers to draft a quarterback, do you think it's worth waiting until 2026? I would rather solidify other positions like wide receiver, cornerback, interior defensive line, and maybe running back in the 2nd to 3rd round.
I agree. I don't think there's a quarterback in this draft class that is worth a 1st-round pick in general, let alone and that includes Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. I don't think they're 1st-round quarterbacks. I think this is another Kenny Pickett year. But I agree. I think next year there are more options. You could get some guys. If you want to take a flyer on somebody in the middle of the draft this season, okay, great. But if you're going to go high, if you're looking for guys in the 1st through the 3rd round, it's not worth it. I agree with you. I would go next year. I think you solidify the rest of your team. You have 2 options at quarterback. Everybody knows my opinion is Justin Fields, but you just pick one. Maybe you find somebody in free agency. I don't know. And you let it rock like that. But I agree with you. I would not go quarterback in this year's draft.
Let's go to Loswald, who says, how does Tomlin not know about GP beefing with fans on the sideline? What's he going to do once he does figure it out? Answer equals nothing.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me that he didn't know that that was happening. I mean, Mike Tomlin has a billion things going on during the game. Concerning himself with players behind him is not one of them. It was also very quick that it happened. He isn't going to do anything about it, though. I think that's a knock on Tomlin at this point, is that GP's getting away with way too much, and it's becoming a very concerning issue. It's been a very concerning issue, but yeah, you're right. It is going to be nothing.
Let's jump to Pittsburgh Hornets again, who says, with Baltimore's defense likely keying on the run, can Russ be trusted to open up the passing game earlier to keep drives alive while still controlling the clock?
Yes, I think so. I do. I'm not like out on Russell Wilson. You know, I don't think Russ sucks. Like, do I think Russ has played well in recent weeks? No. But I do think Russ is a 13-year-old vet, or a 13-year vet who's done this for a long time and has had a lot of success in the NFL, which means that he could have more success in the NFL. I'm not going to rule that out. So yeah, I do. I trusted is a weird word. He could be trusted. It's a matter of, can you trust him after he doesn't prove it? I don't know. Who knows? What's that start look like? Does the start look terrible, or does the start look like a guy that you could continue to lean on for a little while? I think that's a question that goes into this. I would say trusted, yes, with an asterisk. But I'm not out on Russ. Like, I don't think Russ sucks. In my arguments, it's more maybe Justin gives you something that Russ doesn't, and that's worth the risk right now.
Let's jump over to Brimstone, who says, how would a Justin Fields offense with Ashton Jeanty, Jalen Warren in the backfield, Tyreek Hill at number 1, Mike Williams at number 2, and Calvin Austin at 3 sound?
I mean, that would be awesome. It would not happen in a million years, but that would be awesome. Tyreek Hill's not coming to Pittsburgh. They don't want anything to do with Tyreek Hill. They don't. I mean, he was a name that got tossed out there. Let's not act like he wasn't last summer. And maybe it happens again. Who knows? But do you think that Tyreek Hill would want to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers? No. He does not want to come to the cold. He doesn't want to come to an offense without a quarterback. He doesn't want to come to an offense that isn't good in the passing game. It's just, the answer is no. He would not want to come to Pittsburgh. So I think that one wouldn't work. But I mean, how would this sound? This would sound awesome. This sounds like a blazing fast offense that, I mean, maybe not Mike Williams. Maybe you hope you get somebody a little bit better than that. But I mean, this is a crazy fast offense that you could do so many fun things with. So I mean, if we were playing Madden, I'd be all about it.
Yeah, but if that's the case, also, if you get that much speed on the outside, does that really fit with what Arthur Smith wants to do?
It doesn't matter. Arthur Smith's either going to be a good offensive coordinator. Yeah, like if the options are do my offense or have all these guys, you have all the guys and you figure it out. Otherwise, you don't deserve to be an NFL offensive coordinator.
Let's jump down to Mike. Appreciate you. Says Russ isn't the entire problem, but we can't run, pass every single first down. The game plan needs to be mixed up. How do we win? We just needed to score.
Yeah, they did need to score. I agree with you. I think the game plan plays a massive role into this. I think execution plays a massive role into this. I mean, you could go back to the 4th down play in the first half against the Bengals, and you should have got a yard there. You should have got a yard there. You know, it doesn't matter what, you should have got a yard. That's just what good football teams do, is they get that yard. So I agree. I think the play calling is very predictable. I believe that the players are not really playing well. The offensive line looks really bad. If George Pickens, is having drop issues, that's how you know the offense is kind of sinking fast. So I agree. Russ is not playing well. Let's not act like he is. But at the same time, there are many more issues to the Pittsburgh Steelers than just Russell Wilson.
Let's jump to Cody Silva, who says, dream with me for a second. Trade Pickens for Tyreek straight up. Get Higgins from free agency. Keep Justin Fields. Draft a defensive end in the 1st round, and then go get a wide receiver in the 2nd round of the NFL draft. How does that dream sound to you?
I mean, that's, again, sounds great. Sounds awesome. Sounds like a great time. If you're going to go Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, I'm all about that life. You keep Justin Fields. I don't know what you're doing at running back, but who cares at that point? I mean, you just run all the time and go get a defensive end to replace Larry O. I think that would be Beautiful. I honestly don't think you need another wide receiver at that point. You're rocking with Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin, and you should feel pretty okay with that. Ben Skoranek is your fifth. Let's not act like he's going anywhere. Special teams ace. Okay. Ace. That guy is. Yeah, I like it. I would dream with this, and I would dream with you all day.
Let's go back to the Honest Truth, who checks in once again. Appreciate you. Says, I know it's later for an overreaction, but Russell Wilson sliding inbounds against Cincy was one of the most boneheaded plays that I've seen in a while. Never wanted to hit my TV more than I did after that play.
We've all been there. Yeah, no, I agree. That was the moment that I said Russ has got to be done. There's no more questions to it. Russ has got to be done, because that's why you brought Russell Wilson here. You brought Russell Wilson to Pittsburgh to be the 13-year-old vet. I keep saying that. The 13-year NFL vet, 36 years old. You bench the guy that's 42, who's 10 years younger, who's super athletic and a playmaker. Why? Because Russell Wilson's going to do things like go out of bounds in a 2-minute drill to be able to win the ball game. That's what he's going to do. He's going to not turn the ball over. He's going to win you football games, but he's never going to lose you a football game. That's why they brought him here. And that is why in that moment, when he stayed in bounds, when he clearly could have went out of bounds, I said, it's it. Russ is done. There's no more Russell Wilson. Not in Pittsburgh. There shouldn't be. So I agree with you. That was the final straw for me when it came to belief that Russ is doing what the Steelers want him to do.
Let's jump to Chris, who says, Noah, preseason poll had the Steelers last in the division this season. We finished in second, and you don't think Tomlin did a good job?
I'm not going to say Tomlin. I don't think Tomlin created a contender with the guys that could be a contender. That's my thing with Mike Tomlin. I think if you go back, there are a lot of moments this season where you go, what are you doing, Tomlin? Because if you're going to judge somebody, you should judge them by doing that. You should go watch the film. Film says Mike Tomlin called a lot of questionable timeouts, or didn't call questionable timeouts a number of times this season. He stuck to his guns maybe a little bit too much at times. At the end of the day, yeah, I called a 10-6 record. I said Nick called a 10-7 record. I called an 11-6 record. And I knew they were going to be right here. Nick knew they were going to be right here. But I thought that they'd be more of a contender than they are. And right now they're not. And because of that, I mean, I don't know what the baseline is, but if I'm judging Mike Tomlin, I'm judging him off of whether or not he's going to win a Super Bowl.
Let's go over to Cody Silva, who checks in here, says, is Jaylen Warren currently injured?
I'm looking at the injury report now. No, he is not on the injury report. So he's good. I don't know where that came from. If you toss in some context, I just don't want to leave you hanging.
He did have an injury designation during the week against the Ravens. It was, I think, something in his lower body, but then he didn't have anything. Yeah, I thought he did last week, and then he didn't have anything. By the time the game came around, he was fine.
He was good. Oh, yeah. No, you're right there. What was the
rib injury?
Rib. That's what it was.
He was limited in the first practice of the week last week, and then full participant the rest of the week.
Yeah, I agree. But no, he's good right now. He's good, not on the injury report, which is good news. I'm obviously in Vegas, so I can't ask, but I haven't heard anything, and usually I do. So I would imagine he's pretty good.
Let's go back to Mike Lang, who says, sorry, autocorrect got to me, but how do we win against Baltimore? We have to score points because as good as this defense is, they are going to get scored on Saturday.
I 100% agree. Gosh, Cody's next comment got me. I 100% agree with this. How do you win against Baltimore? Is very simple. It's you control the game in positive plays offensively. That's what you do. It's old school football. It really is old school football. If you're nervous, Lamar Jackson's going to score 30 on you. If you're nervous, Derrick Henry's not going to be able to, or is going to do too much, you're not going to be able to stop him. Okay, so control the game. Control. It's been so long, 6+ weeks since the Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, 18-16 win was the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers controlled a game. That's how you got to do it. You got to go control this game offensively. Even if you're not putting up a boatload of points, give them opportunities, set your offense up to score, set Chris Boswell up to kick field goals. You have to create positive drives while you have to create longer drives to control a game while finishing them with points. That's what you have to do to beat the Ravens.
You mentioned Cody's next comment. Let's go to it here because he chips in, which means he gets on the board. Why did Cordero Patterson play then?
That I wish I knew, pal. I wish I knew. I wish you could see, okay? I'm not going to name names or anybody, but I wish you could see the amount of like head shaking when he enters a game, just the amount of people that are around me that I could see in the stands right there that are just like, why is this guy in the game? What are we doing here? It just doesn't make sense. It never makes sense, man. Never makes sense. I don't get it, but I don't have an answer to why.
Richard Hunt wants to know, are you going to stay in that shady hotel like you did last year when the blizzard hit?
100%. If I get lost in Maryland one more time and the blizzard hits, I'm going right to the Super 8. And I hope the kids from West Virginia are there again. I hope the Pizza Hut workers are there again. I'll walk to Sheets if I gotta. Maybe I'll have the wife this time, so we'll get to hang out a little bit. I'll get to, get her on the road, be like, this is it, man. This is being a journalist. This is covering the Pittsburgh Steelers. Super 8 on the side of a highway. This is a good time. We'll see. I'm hoping that snow goes right out into the ocean. That's what I'm hoping for.
Let's go to B. Wayne, who says, y'all think Minkah in the slot and KZ and Elliott at safety would work for the Steelers?
And no, I like Minkah as a deep guy. I think Minkah in the slot would work, but I think KZ in the slot would work. I think you could put KZ in the slot and it'll work. I just think it's a different position. I wish I had an answer. Like, I wish I had a better answer to this. I wish I had a solution as to how the Steelers can go about this. But really, it just comes down to Cam Sutton and Beanie Bishop should be playing better. And if they do play better, then the Steelers defense loses a massive hole. I don't mind Minkah in the slot, but I think you're taking a lot away from him by putting him there.
Let's jump to St. Eltro, who says, if Mason McCormick can't go due to his hand injury, who replaces him in the starting lineup?
It'd be Spencer Anderson, who started a couple games this season, looked good for a little bit of those starting games, looked bad by the end of it, but looked good for some of them. But I expect Mason to play. From what I've been told, he's a South Dakota guy who's like, yeah, man, it's a broken hand. Put a cast on it. Let's keep it rock. Let's get out there. So I expect Mason McCormick to go, but it will be Spencer Anderson if he doesn't.
The guy already plays with a neck protector. He's like, yeah, just give me a club. I'll use it.
Just give me a club. That's exactly what it is. He's just like, do you guys know who I am? Like, do you know my background? Like, we're fine. I was catching freaking wallaby or whatever 20 minutes after I got drafted to the NFL. So we're fine.
Let's go to Jordan, who says, if you two were both athletes, that's a little presumptuous of you to think we're not, but if you two were both athletes, what position would you play that needs to help ensure we beat the Ravens on Saturday?
Okay, so I'm 5'8", all right? And I was just I had dinner with a former college offensive tackle who's 6'9". He's now skinny, but he said at his most, he was like just under 400 pounds. And I have these dinners from time to time. I hang out with football players, obviously. Like, I spend Monday through Friday with them. I realize quite often that I am not an athlete, okay? And that I would not make it in the NFL. That being said, what position would I play? Nickelback, because that's what the Steelers need right now defensively, is a nickel. And if I was 6'5", 340 pounds, I'd play defensive tackle, because I think that's their second biggest need, is a really good defensive tackle next to Cam Hayward.
I'm not even going to pretend that I could be an upgrade for anywhere on this team.
Oh, so yeah. Let's not say that. I'm talking elite.
Yes.
Madden create a player.
Yes. Field goal holder. That's me. Sorry, Corliss. That's what I'm doing.
Do you know how much pressure is on that?
I did that in high school. I know exactly how much pressure, and I can imagine how much more it gets whenever you get to the upper levels. But I did not enjoy it during high school, but I was somehow very good at it.
Well, that's awesome. There's no chance I'd do that. I would definitely drop the ball, scared that he's going to kick my finger.
Let's go over to Alexander, who says Russ is more successful in games with more pass attempts. Is that the key to victory on Saturday?
No, it's just unfortunately not. I hear where you're coming from. I get that stat. I have also looked at it. I don't think that's the case. Like I personally think that the best way to go about beating the Ravens is for Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren to each have 100 yards. Like I think that's the way to go, which I don't think that's possible, but I think that's the best way to beat the Ravens. I think once you start throwing the football all over the place, the offensive line is going to find some holes, or is going to have some holes, and they're going to become loose. You're going to run into instances where Russ is taking hits and doing things that you don't want him to do, and you increase the opportunities for turnovers. So it's crazy to say this, but I really think that the Steelers' best way to go about this is to just play safe football and win a football game, because that's what they were built to do. They weren't built to win 40-0. They were built to win 24-14. And that's a big win. And I think that's possible if you can control the game.
Let's close out this episode with AJ's question. What happens to the podcast after the season is over? How often do you guys record?
Every day, my friend. We will be on here every day. Now we will, obviously, like we did it last year. We'll do it again this year. We don't have dates yet, but we'll take a week off where we, go on vacation or something like that. But it'll be in the middle of nothing. Like it'll be June, July, when nothing's going on and there's nothing to talk about. And we'll make sure that we are always available for the good ones, but or for the good times. But no, we'll be here. We'll be here. And during the off season, we'll have some fun stuff. My brain's been moving about ways to make the off season kind of fun. So we'll dive into it, but we'll be here every day. We ain't going nowhere.
We do have one last plea that came in at the last second. We got to go to Thomas really quickly with his ask of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Says, honestly, pretty over Russ. We aren't winning anything with him at quarterback anymore. He only ever beat bad teams convincingly. And then in all caps says, start Field. So that is the plea from Thomas. How do you feel about that as we close out this episode?
I think it's a little harsh to say he hasn't beaten anybody, but me, Thomas, you've clearly listened to this before. I'm on board with you. It's Justin Fields' time in Pittsburgh. It is Justin Fields' time in Pittsburgh. It won't be. It should be. And if it doesn't work, okay, great. I'm not even going to say I was wrong. It just didn't work. But you got to test it out. If the mindset was test it out with Russ because you got to see what you got in both of these guys, it should be test it out with Justin because you got to see what you got with both of these guys when things aren't going well. I think it should go both ways. It won't. We all know that, obviously, but it should. And I agree with you, Thomas. I agree with you. And if I had any authority to tell Mike Tomlin to do so, I would. But I like bringing you guys some insight, and I don't want to get kicked out of the locker room. So we're going to keep this one between us.
When Mike Tomlin made the decision to switch from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson, he did have a quote that said, one of the reasons we're doing this is Justin has been good, not great, and we need great. Well, I think good would be pretty good from the quarterback position right now if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Average would be fantastic. Running out of bounds in a 2-minute drill and not throwing pick sixes against the Ravens is all you're looking for right now. It's all you're looking for right now. Yeah, I agree. Hell of a quote. Way to pull that one out.
That's a wrap for today then.
All right, awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. I will say this, make a quick announcement. Tomorrow I'm heading back to Pittsburgh. Flight is like right around podcast time. I'm going to still try to do the podcast at the 4 p.m. slot, but we might have to bump it up like an hour or two. We'll let you know with plenty of time on our community page, but we will try very hard to make it 4 p.m. for you guys, but wanted to make sure I got that one out there. With that said, enjoy a beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.